Welcome, this is my best photos of 2023 video. And with that, let's just get started. So, I started off the year taking some really cool shots in January using my drone. So, it was just after the new year, it was winter. We went up by a lake here in Utah called Pine View Reservoir. And just off that lake, there was some really pretty mountains with trees all blanketed in snow. It was actually snowing when I flew the drone, but I threw it up there and took this first shot. But it's really cool because you can see the layers. There's pine trees in front and then kind of giving you an awesome foreground element, and then going back further there's a line of pine trees, and then even further back the mountain and sky. So there's a vertical and a horizontal at this location. So here's that first shot. Okay, and then here is just a horizontal of the same thing. All right, next we're actually going to jump all the way to April, but in April we went to the Thanksgiving Point Tulip Festival. They have tulips everywhere. It's a huge kind of park garden grounds where you can just walk through and see all of them. We were there a little early, so a lot of them were still budding, but it was still really pretty. But I managed to snap this picture that shows some that have bloomed, some that are, not quite yet. But I just love the softness, the colors. It's got, red and green obviously, but it turned out really pretty. So here's that picture. Okay, next in May, I want to share some photos. And I ended up doing a lot of hiking this year, getting out and going on different hikes with friends, things like that, and trying to take lots of pictures. So I went on this hike. It was sunny, so it wasn't perfect conditions. The sky was really bright. However, there was this awesome lookout at the top of the hike where you could look across the canyon, see the mountain. There was still some snow. You had all the pine trees. And then I found like this awesome little kind of twisty tree in the front for a great foreground element. So this was taken in Big Cottonwood Canyon in Utah in May. And so here's that shot. All right, next are two shots I took on the same hike. That was in June, so different hike than the other one, but these two next shots were from the same hike. And it was a hike to Lake Blanche in Cottonwood Canyon, which I had never been, had really wanted to get up there. I'd seen pictures. It looked really pretty and it did not disappoint. It was super pretty, but again, it was kind of sunny conditions, middle of the day. And so this first one is a vertical shot that I took next to the lake, kind of down by it, and I just put my camera down and took a picture, and I wanted to get the reflection, and I really liked the framing. So let me share the shot and then I'll mention a few things. Okay, I love how the clouds and the reflection kind of make a frame around the peak itself, and that peak you're looking at is called Sundial Peak, but this shot turned out really great. Okay, next is a panoramic I took right there by the lake as well. So I just set it up, wanted to get some of the reflection, rotated my camera all the way to the left, snapped a shot, a little more, snapped a shot, and just kept going. Stitched it all together in post-processing and ended up getting this really awesome panoramic. Even with the sunny skies, I think it turned out super great. One of my favorite photos of the year. So here's that one. Okay, next are some shots in June as well, near the end of June. that I took in Idaho. So we went on a little short trip to Twin Falls, which is a super pretty place, lots of hidden gems there. One of which is the Shoshone Falls, and they're kind of like a little Niagara Falls, if you will. They're super, super pretty. And when we first got there, it was just packed. It was super busy, and I was worried. I was like, man, how am I gonna get a good photo? We ended up going back later, and it was empty. We had it to ourselves. So I flew my drone. There's a super awesome video of that, and some of the other highlights from Twin Falls I can link. And then got some really good photos. So this first one is with, actually both of these ones that I chose to include, I took with my camera, not with my drone. So this first one's a vertical shot at sunset of Shoshone Falls. So here's that one. Okay, next is a bit of an experiment shot for me, but it turned out super great. I wanted to do a panoramic, similar to like the one I did at Lake Blanche, and get the whole thing, all the waterfalls. But I wanted to do a long exposure as well. So I set my camera up to do, you know, a long enough shutter speed that I could get the blur of the waterfall. And I took a shot, moved it, took a shot, moved it, took a shot, moved it, and then stitched those together as a panorama, and it just turned out incredible. So here's that. Okay, the next day we went to a place near Twin Falls called Box Spring Canyon, and it's like this hidden oasis in the middle of the desert. So it's nothing but kind of like dust and rocks and flat, and then there's just this canyon that has super pretty blue water and all this green lush vegetation around it. And I flew my drone basically down and into that canyon, over it. Again, that's in the Idaho video, but I got this super awesome shot where I moved my drone down, kind of looking to the end of the canyon, which was a little bit of a cove, and lowered it down so there's kind of this rock in the foreground, and just looking at the river going towards that end of the canyon, and it turned out really great. So here's that shot. Okay, next, in the end of July and beginning of August, I went 2 times to Albion Basin, which is at the Alta Ski Resort, but they have lots of wildflowers. So you can go, you can pay and drive your car up a little higher and then walk through the flower meadows, and there's just wildflowers everywhere. It's super pretty. The first time we went, there were mosquitoes everywhere. The second time, that was not the case, but there were hummingbirds everywhere, which was really cool. Tried to get a good shot, but they move super quick. So this first one is just some of the purple flowers standing out among some of the yellow wildflowers there. Just zoomed in on it. So here's that shot. Okay, this next one from Albion Basin is further out, so you can see more of the hillside of wildflowers with the mountain in the back, and it just is super pretty to see some of the detail in all those wildflowers, and just the landscape in general. Here's that one. Okay, the rest of these from Albion Basin are from the second time that I went, but this is a close-up shot of what I believe is called Indian paintbrush or something like that, and it's this really red wildflower, super red, and it's gorgeous in person, and so I wanted to get some of those. So this is an up close of those flowers. Okay, this next one is a horizontal shot, and the second time I went, it was the sun was just kind of coming over the mountain there, and there were these really kind of light, almost like paler baby blue wildflowers that looked super pretty. And so I got the sun coming over as well as those flowers kind of illuminated. So here's what that one looks like. Okay, there's two more of the landscape with kind of the wildflowers in front that I wanted to share from Albion Basin. So this first one just has flowers of different types of colors. You'll see some of the reds there in this one as well. Again with the mountain in the background, and I thought it turned out super pretty. So here's that one. And then lastly, it's another one of those, this time with more of the yellow flowers and some of those purple ones standing out, again with the mountain in the background, just looking at the scenery. Okay, this next one is from a hike I did. Hiked for the first time to the top of Mount Timpanogos here in Utah, which is a killer hike if you've never done it. Pretty strenuous, and so much so that I had all these plans to take these great photos at the top. We did a sunrise hike, but I got up there and was just so exhausted and kind of caught up in the moment. I did not even pay attention to my camera settings, so I got a lot of mediocre photos. But this one was kind of just a point and snap, but I really love how it turned out. So to the side of us, because the sun, had come up, you could see the gradient in the sky and kind of those pinkish, purplish colors on everything, and it looked really cool. But there was a mountain ridge in the distance that was kind of getting lit up by those colors, and I just snapped it. And pretty simple photo. It's just that mountain range with the kind of sunrise gradient sky, but I thought it turned out awesome. So here's that one. Okay, next in September, we went to the Wings and Wheels car show. So they do a little bit of an air show as well as a car show. And part of the car show, they do these kind of speed runs on the airstrip. And so I really wanted to get one of those shots where you see the car in focus, but the background's kind of all blurry. So I sat there with my camera, and just as things went by, was kind of rotating and snapping pics, and I ended up getting some good ones that I liked. So this first one here is of a Mustang that was going by, and I kind of got it squared in the frame. So the background's a little blurred, but you can see the Mustang in detail, and I did end up doing this one in black and white, and I thought it turned out really good. So here's that photo. Okay, next there are two photos that are the same. It's of a Lamborghini, but I wanted to do one in color and one in black and white, and I thought they were both good, so I figured I would include both in this video. But similar thing, the background is kind of blurred, but the car is in focus. This time I did a bit more of a panoramic. I tried to get the car kind of on the side moving into the frame, and so here's the first one in color. And then here's the black and white of the Lamborghini. Okay, next are some photos that I took out by the Salt Lake. Went there kind of just on the flats and flew my drone around and captured some really great pics. So this is looking north towards Antelope Island, but just kind of the markings that were on the ground there. There's kind of some hills and things like that, and the clouds above made for this perfect frame where I kind of shot almost through it looking at Antelope Island in the middle, and it turned out really cool. So here's that photo. All right, next are two drone shots kind of as the sun was setting. So I took one vertical and then one horizontal once the sun was a little bit lower there. And I tried to get a little bit of just kind of the water near the lake, kind of close to the shore, but not quite. where it's kind of lit up as the sun's going down. And again, the clouds made a really good frame for the sunset. So here's the vertical shot. And then here is the horizontal once the sun was a little bit lower. All right, now we are in October. Those from Salt Lake were also in October, but I wanted to get fall pictures just like every year. So we tried to get out. We went down to Sundance near Provo and took some there with my camera and my drone. So this first one I took with my camera, we just pulled to the side of the road. There was this little trail, walked out, and it was just this beautiful view. You could see the colors. Again, it was a super bright sky, unfortunately, which wasn't the best, but I snapped it anyway, and I really like this photo. You can really see the layers. So you can see initially kind of some green trees that were in front of us, but then kind of layers and all the colors. So you'll see the oranges, the reds, the yellows, and the peak is still capped in snow of the mountain in the background, which I thought was pretty cool. So took this with my Canon. Here's that shot. Okay, this next one was one I took with my drone. I flew it up at that same location as the last one and just got kind of the bird's eye view. And I really loved all the colors you could see here. Again, I wish the sky wasn't as bright and blue, but you can see the road kind of twist and turn through this photo, which I thought made for a really cool, interesting subject. And so here's that one. Okay, next are some fall photos that I actually took in Millcreek Canyon in Salt Lake. We went to hike there, and so I was just walking along the trail for this first one, and the sun was kind of coming through the trees, lighting up the trail. There were these roots on the trail with all the yellow leaves on the ground. It just made for an awesome scene. So I literally just stopped where I was and pulled out my camera and snapped this picture, but it turned out really great. Okay, this next one is one that I took again in Millcreek Canyon. There were some aspens with just these really, really orange and yellow leaves. And I had seen photos where photographers make it a little abstract. They'll basically just use a little bit of a longer shutter speed and move their camera. And it almost looks kind of like a painted art or something. And I'd seen it done with like these aspens in fall like this, and I had really wanted to try it. So I explained to my friends who were with me there kind of how it worked, and that's what I did. I set my shutter speed to be a little longer, zoomed in on the aspens, and then just kind of moved like that as I took the photo. And it turned out really great. So here's the best one. I did a couple, but here's the best one. All right, a little later in October, I did some more fall photos with my drone near Trapper's Loop. And so it was a super cloudy, it ended up raining really hard actually later on, but cloudy day. So it made for a kind of moody atmosphere, but flew up the drone, and here in this first photo, you'll see kind of the whole foreground hill covered in like these fall trees, a mountain, and then all the kind of like storm clouds over it. And it made for a really cool shot. Okay, and this next one is basically a vertical shot of the same thing, but you can kind of see more of the colors. I backed up for this shot and got a little closer to those trees, the mountains in the middle with all the kind of stormy clouds on top. It looks awesome. So here's that one. Okay, this next one is probably my favorite photo from 2023. I went on a hike in Adams Canyon and saw how pretty it was with the fall colors, and that's in Layton here in Utah. And I ended up going back to get this shot because I saw an area and I was like, this would be a good area for the shot. I kind of had the idea in my head. So went back and ended up shooting this scene. So I took this picture of the river. I did a long exposure. You can see the fall colors, but it turned out really great. So I'll show that, and then I want to call out a few things. So I wanted to mention here, the leaf you see on the front rock, I actually planted that. I thought it would be good to have something a little interesting in the foreground there. So I found one, put it on that rock. And then the other thing you can't see here in the photo is there was a lot of branches kind of poking out and going into the river or in front of it. And I was able to use Photoshop to remove a lot of those and clean this up. But it turned out just awesome. Like I said, probably my favorite photo of the year. All right, we're nearing the end of the year here. So in the middle of October, we went on a trip to Nashville and I was able to take some pictures there. So these first two are just drone shots of downtown. One of a bridge that I thought looked super pretty, and there's kind of some cool leading lines here. And the lighting at the time I threw the drone up just happened to be perfect in Nashville. The sun was going down, it was kind of stormy, there were clouds, it was just perfect. So here's that drone shot of the bridge. All right, and here is another drone shot of Broadway, which if you don't know or haven't been to Nashville, it's kind of like the main street. It's got all the bars, all the live music, basically where everything's going on, and there's lots of cool signs, neon signs and things like that. So this is kind of up above looking over that road. All right, this next one was actually a shot I took with my Canon, just handheld walking around Nashville. But again, like I said, the lighting was perfect. It was stormy and kind of cloudy. I have a super good Nashville video if you want to see the drone footage. I can link that here. But for this one, I was just walking around. Everything was kind of like purpley. The sun was going down. This is after I finished flying my drone. And I looked up and it was reflecting on this skyscraper, looked really cool, so I snapped a picture of it, and here's what it looks like. All right, and of course I was really tempted to take some pictures of the neon signs on Broadway, and this one is probably my favorite. I just thought it turned out really cool as a picture. And when I see it, it makes me think of Nashville. So here's one of the neon signs. Okay, these next two were outside of Nashville, downtown. There's, that little river. And I was on the other side of the river looking over at night, and so you can see all the colorful lights because of all the neon signs and things like that. And so I really wanted to get a long exposure with those lights reflecting in the water, and so I did. It worked out great. However, there was kind of this little dock and a boat in front, and I can't decide to this day if I like it better with or without the boat, so I figured I'd include both here. So it's just a shot of the city with those colorful lights reflecting in the water, one with the boat and without. So here's the first one with the boat. And here's the second one where I removed the boat. We've made it to the last photo. So this last one was in Tennessee, not near Nashville, maybe an hour away. I had looked up before we went all the waterfalls kind of near Nashville, and there's a ton of pretty ones near Nashville. And so I really wanted to go to one of them. So our last day, we took a little extra time and went to this one. It's called Rutledge Falls, and it's super pretty. It's on private property, but they allow people to go down, and you only walk like 1 minute and you're there. So it's really cool, kind of this hidden cove on the river, just off the road, but super pretty. There were other photographers there and kind of people hanging out, but I got down and set up my camera. I didn't have my full tripods. I didn't bring it on vacation, so I just had a little one, but it still worked. I set up my little tiny tripod. There's a behind the scenes if you want to watch that. And I got some rocks that I wanted in my foreground and then the waterfall in the background, and just took this long exposure and thought it turned out really good. So here's that one. Those are my best photos of 2023. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.